Hello. I have some thoughts I wanted to share about these interesting times we find ourselves in. And can I just pause there and say that interesting doesn't even begin to cut it these days? So as I went to gather my thoughts, I did what I find I naturally do, which is I went to my heart, and I told a story. And I've told this story before, but I've written this story before. And in fact, the story that I'm going to tell you now is from my first book, in Unscripted, but I've never read it aloud. And I'm feeling compelled to share it with you today because the story that I got up and I wrote at 1 in the morning this morning is called March 17th. So here it is, from my heart to yours. 15 years ago, on this very day, I gave birth to a son I knew would not survive outside my womb. I was 36 years old and a reluctant statistic, the anomaly in a waiting room full of normal. The story people talk about in hushed tones at dinner parties, the recipient of the "I'm so sorry, are you okay?" look from coworkers, which would later morph into the "let me know if there's anything I can do" request that felt like a burden. I became a member of an invisible club that doesn't openly celebrate its membership in the light of day for this and many other reasons. I was pissed. I was in my head. I wasn't prepared at all. This is not what was supposed to have happened. I didn't have time for this. Not now. Not like this. Please make this stop. March 17th was the day that cracked me open. March 17th was the day that cracked open my life in ways I could not have imagined. If you knew me back then, maybe you saw this happening. Maybe you saw how my life as I envisioned it came to a screeching halt. Maybe you saw how I railed at this not being in my plans. Maybe you saw how I cleaved in half like a tree struck by lightning. And yet, oddly, I didn't die. Because you see, I used to think I was important. I was a very busy person with a very full schedule. People needed me and I was in demand. I had no time. I had meetings to go to, would work late and come in early to fit in more, always more. I was that important, or so I thought. That was me in the corporate world before the lightning strike. And then, 2 days before one of the biggest events we had planned all year, I got a call from my midwife telling me that something in my blood work was not good. Dismiss. Laugh it off. That can't be right. Sudden disruption without my permission. Inconvenient truth squarely in my path. Undeniably in my body. Cancellations, disappointments, drop balls. Impossible decisions, brutally hard conversations, pouring through probabilities, shame, rage, vertigo, and tumult as our baby moved in my belly. 48 hours. That's how long it took me to work myself out of an important job to go out on medical leave. I would have said that was impossible. But on March 17th, while people drank green beer and celebrated in the streets of my fair city with bagpipes, I was in a hospital room behind a door with a teardrop sticker affixed to the outside to let people know things had not gone according to plan. There was grief inside our room, grief I had never known. And as I held my newborn son in my arms for the few moments he lived, my husband held me and made noises I hope to never hear again. Apparently, he hadn't seen this coming either. Apparently, he felt the thunderbolt too. I remember soothing my son even as I knew he was dying. I remember soothing my husband even as I knew I could not feel his pain for him. I also remember the sense of calm bubbling up from the deepest part of me, like I was tapping into a reservoir of strength I never knew I had. It's amazing what's possible when you're cracked in half by something unexpected, something you didn't plan for or count on. It's amazing what happens when entitlement, arrogance, and the illusion of control get burned to the ground, sometimes fast, often without permission, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Something rises up to meet you, Or maybe I should say something rises up inside you. Something that was always there, but just was lost in the noise of a busy life. Many things died in me that day in March. My naivete, my sense of control, my belief there was a right or wrong answer to every question, my understanding that plans were real, my sense that I could know what someone else was going through, my need to explain myself, my expectations that I would be understood. But like a wildfire that tears across a parched forest, there was new growth that came in the space it created. A river of resourcefulness I had only begun to tap into. A fountain of creativity I kept carefully hidden on the outskirts of my life. A deep well of spirituality I had never allowed myself to go into. But most of all, an ocean of compassion that helped me see I am but a single wave connected to a much larger body of water. And while I matter, I'm not all that important. I was never really alone doing this thing called life, even when I thought I was. I will never really be alone because someone somewhere will recognize my footsteps in the sand and they will offer a bearing, maybe some hope, just like the ones I found that day in March when I needed them the most. Random strangers and people who share a circumstance often make the best company in these times, like in airports or hospitals or grocery stores. We can do hard things. We are stronger still than our strongest moments combined. It's okay if we forget that sometimes because someone will remind you when you need it most. Look for them and let them in. We are not alone out here on this beach of humanity, even if lightning strikes us every day. Something in us will rise up again and again to meet us and grow new life. This I know. Here's to us, people. Here's to us. Much love to you all. Mwah.